Myself Nandadeep Nathan. I'm Office 65 consultant and Microsoft MVP for Office Apps and Services. So we are here to talk about SharePoint updates that has been rolled out for Microsoft Build. So the points which we are going to talk about is how we can host the SharePoint site inside Microsoft Teams, like SharePoint apps inside Microsoft Teams. Then we will talk about SharePoint REST APIs specifically for TermStore as a V2 version. And then we will have a look at new term manager that we have in SharePoint and the content type gallery. So since most of these features are still in preview, that hasn't been rolled out to most of the tenants. I won't be able to demo all of the features to you, but since my tenant is kind of a first release tenant, which I have marked here for everyone inside my tenant, I will be able to show at least 20 to 30% of the demos. Okay, so with that, let's first talk about SharePoint app in Microsoft Teams. So here, let's see how we can take an existing SharePoint site and how you can wrap that up and package it as a standalone application that you can deploy in Teams. So this is great for internet SharePoint sites that you want to package and deploy to rest of your organizations. So for example, if you want to package your SharePoint site inside Microsoft Teams, then we have SharePoint apps in Microsoft Teams. So let's get started. The first thing you want to do is you'll have to just refer to the documentation URL, which is over here, aka.ms SharePoint app in Teams, which is over here. So here they have detailed steps on how you can go through this entire process and make it done. But let's see how we can do. So firstly, that this is only available with the SharePoint modern sites, not with the SharePoint classic sites. So take any of the SharePoint modern sites or SharePoint modern page which you want to host inside your Microsoft Teams. So once you have that particular site, in our case, we are going to use this particular site. Okay, I don't have it open. All right. Okay, so this is the site which I'm going to host inside my Microsoft Teams. So this is again a modern site, modern communication site, which we'll be hosting. So the site URL will be the URL which we want to host inside Microsoft Teams. And then the site path will be the path after your managed path, like /site/SP demo in this case. And the subdomain will be the domain of your SharePoint site or Office 65 tenant. So in this case, it is Contoso. So these are the prerequisites that we will need whenever we go ahead and create that particular app inside Microsoft Teams. So for that, let me go back to Microsoft Teams. So the first thing that I will have to do is I will have to go to the App Studio. If you can't see App Studio inside your Microsoft Teams, then just go to More Apps, search the Team Studio over here and install it. So since I have already App Studio installed, I will go there. Then the next thing is that we will have to package it as an app. So for that reason, we'll have to go to the manifest editor. And from here, we can create a new app. So that app just requires few things like short name, full name, and other things. So I will not create an app as such, but I will rather use the app which I have created already. So this is the app which I have created already called as Internet. So the short name, full name, we have to specify. The identification, that means the app ID, it is some kind of an GUID. It is used for the semantic versioning for your versioning number. So if you have any app ID, you can specify it here. Otherwise, you can go ahead and generate a new one. And then you can specify the package name which can uniquely identify your package. In this case, it is just com.microsoft.teams.app. Specify the version. Since this is the first version, we have it as 1.0.0. Then specify some description, short description and full description here. Specify all of your developer information, who will be responsible for managing this particular app. Then again specify the privacy statements, terms of use. If you have any custom icon for this particular app, then you can specify it over here. Once it is done, the second thing is now we want to host it as a tab inside maybe a Microsoft Teams or as a personal tab. So for this particular demonstration purpose, I'm going to host it as a personal tab. So for that, I already have the tab created, but again, it is a simple process. We just have to mention the name, entity ID, again, a unique tab ID in this case, content URL and website URL. So when it comes to content URL and website URL, there is a specific format which we'll have to follow. So we don't have to remember that format. Anyways, you can refer to this documentation. They have this content URL and website URL format given here. So the same thing I'm using inside my tab. So let me edit this. So for this personal tab, the name specified is as home. Then the entity name is just unique entity ID, and the content URL is following the format which I just have shown. So in this case, it is site URL slash layouts 15 teams logon, and then rest of the things as it has been specified into the documentation. And then the website URL is the SharePoint site URL which you are going to host inside your personal tab. Once it is here, click save, and then that particular tab is ready. But we are not done yet. The next thing that we will have to do is we'll have to go to the uh, domains and permissions, because Teams and SharePoint, those are two separate entities. And now that we'll have to specify or configure the single sign-on for those two entities. So for that reason, we'll have to go to the domains and permissions and make sure that you are adding your valid domain, like the SharePoint site domain here, so that it can be trusted by your team side. Once it is done, you will have to specify this AAD application ID, which is again given by Microsoft, which will help you to create or configure the app for the single sign-on between Microsoft Teams and SharePoint. And once it is done, you'll have to specify the single sign-on URL as the URL of your SharePoint site. So this was the last configuration which we'll have to do. Once it is done, the last thing is that we'll have to test and distribute this particular package. So once you click here, if there are any errors, it will get displayed here. So luckily we don't have any errors as of now. So we can go ahead and click install. So this particular personal tab will get installed to your Microsoft Teams. So once it is done, this is the tab which I have pre-configured already. So this tab is now hosting your SharePoint site. So the good thing is that even you can extract this particular tab or export, and again you can import it to some other SharePoint or Microsoft Teams, so that it is a packageable app which you can use. So you can take an existing SharePoint site and package it as a standalone personal app inside your Microsoft Teams. So this was the first cool update that was released in or announced in the Microsoft build, and fortunately it is available in most of the tenants. Here are a few of the resources that you can use. So firstly, the resource which has the entire documentation, aka.ms SharePoint apps in Teams. And then, for example, if you're new to the Teams, then you can refer to this particular URL on how you can manage the apps inside your Teams. And again, I have my blog with all of the screenshots and the more detailed information on how you can get started on doing all those things. So this was about hosting your SharePoint apps inside Microsoft Team. So the next very good update from the build, which maybe all of the SharePoint developers have been waiting for, is SharePoint REST API v2 for TermStore. So so these are the APIs that are designed for a basic create, read, update, delete. That means CRUD operations on the taxonomy service within Project Cortex. So the scenarios include providing basic functionality, so that some functionality of the UI for the TermStore can be built around the APIs. So in addition, the APIs can be used by third-party developers like us, so that they can perform the CRUD operations on the TermStore. So the scenarios will include creating a term, modifying its properties, or deleting a term, and other scenarios they are also supported. So we can directly use these V2 APIs to create an application against TermStore. So the five major entities that we can define here is store, term groups, sets, terms, and relations. So let's see like how we can use those. So for those, we have new entity types called as Microsoft.graph.termstore.store, then .group, set, term, relation. So this .store defines all of your entity types for term store. This one defines all of the entity types for term groups, which is the top level holding point. And then we have a few entity types which denotes your single term set, term, and the relation between those terms. So for example, if the term has been copied or it has been carried over, so all those relations can be specified in these entity types. So with that, again, we have two new permission scopes available to us. So the first one is termstore.read.all. So by name, it also specifies that with this particular permission scopes, we will be just able to perform the read operations against our term store. The second API or the second scope which is available to us is termstore.readwrite.all. Again, this will be used for your entire CRUD operations, by which you will be able to create, read, update, and delete all of your groups, term set, and terms, and even the uh, relationship between those terms. So let's see a demo of this particular functionality. So I already have one SPFX application created, and inside that I'm specifying this scope as termstore.readwrite.all so that I can perform all of those read and write operations. Fortunately, before I started writing this code, I came across PNP.js. They already are supporting these APIs. So I'm directly using those PNP.js capabilities to make operations against TermStore. So before I walk through this code, let me show you how it looks like. So maybe let me close this. Okay, so at least this is how it looks. So I have one SPFX web part which is calling those REST APIs v2 version for operations against TermStore. So the first API that we have is for getting the information about term store itself, so that we can access the term store data itself. Once I click, so this is not a great UI. I should have done some efforts here to make it really good looking, but the major intention is like how we can use those REST APIs which are available. So once I click this term store to get the term store data, here we can get the ID and name of that particular term store which I have. So for example, from here even I can go to term store here. So this is the term store I have, and this is the name of the term store and the ID of the term store which we are getting over here. So the next thing is like how we can get the term groups. So once I click here, it will list out all of the groups that I have. So group means that is the first level of hierarchy that we have in our term store. So we have at least 6 to 7 groups specified here, which are being written by those V2 APIs. The next thing is, for example, if you want to get a specific group by its ID, it can be done. So I'm just getting one group from here to get the particular group. Once I'm into the group, the next thing that we can do is using that group, we will be able to get all of the sets or the term sets from that particular group. So I can click this, and now that I just have only one term set inside my group, so it is being written here. So for example, this one, and then there is one more API to get the term set by its ID. So even it will once you give the ID of your term set to it, it will return you the entire information about your term set. And the lastly, once we are to the term set, we can use it to get the further terms. So once I click here, it will return us all of the terms that I have under that particular term set. So for example, these are the terms that I have here, which will be written. And then for a specific operations to get the terms, we can click this button to get the term by the ID. So with this context set, let me go back to the code. And this is a very simple code. Since I'm using PNP.js, it is more simpler now. So I just have these buttons here, which is performing all of those operations. So all these buttons are here. The next thing or major thing that I'm going to do is using the term store data. So to access those term store data, firstly that I'm just using sp.termstore so that it can get the information about the term store which I have inside my Office 365 or SharePoint context. So once it is with me, I can get the ID, name, and even few other more information like who is the TermStore administrator and other things. So the second thing here is once we have the term store, we can get the term groups. So again for that we have API which is being internally called by PNP.js, but from that term store we can get the term groups, and once we have those number of terms groups with us, we can iterate through those groups and use them. One alternative way to this is maybe instead of using termstore.termgroups, even you can use this API called as termstore.groups. Even it will give you the same kind of an information. Again, for example, if you want to use a specific group by its ID, in that case, you can use this get by ID function to get the information about that particular term group. So the same thing goes for term set. So because once you have your term store with you, you can get the group, and inside that group you can get all of the term sets. So once you have all the term sets, you can iterate to it, make the operations. Again, we have one more alternate options available here, just sets. Instead of term sets, even you can make a call using sets. Again, you can get the term set by its ID. Same thing goes for terms. Once you have your term store, you can get to the groups, you can get to the term sets inside that particular group, and then you can get to the terms which are defined inside that particular term set. And then again, you can iterate through all of those terms to make your operations done. The lastly, again, we can use this term set by ID to get a specific term by its ID, and again you can use it. One thing which I want to specifically show you here is okay, the API access, because this kind of operation won't be possible without any kind of an specific API access. So for those API access, we have these two APIs like termstore.read.all and termstore.readwrite.all. So all of these APIs are at the moment available as the delegated or the user delegated application permissions. So once you request for this particular access of this particular API, your admin has to consent that particular access to you or to the entire organization. So all of these API at the moment are user delegated permissions. Okay, so with that, again, let me come back to my slides. So this is only about the V2 version of REST API that we have in SharePoint. But again, all of those APIs will be in the future available under the Graph APIs. So once you open the graph.microsoft.com/GE Graph Explorer, you should be able to see all of those APIs there. And then we will have few of the major APIs like graph.microsoft.com/termstore to get all of the information about the term store, and then get the term set details, term group details, and even there will be a few more APIs. So as of now, they are available as a V2 version of REST APIs, but in the future, even they will be available under graph.microsoft.com. Okay, so again, these are a few of the resources that you can use to get started with REST API version 2, along with all of the Graph APIs which are available. And then again, here is a good documentation of pre-release taxonomy Graph APIs which are available. And the code sample which I just demonstrated here is available at this particular location if you want to explore how those V2 APIs has been used. Uh, the last but one thing is new term manager. So this new term manager is right now available in the content services section of the SharePoint admin center, and this one provides a modern integrated controls for creation and management of the taxonomies and glossaries inside your term store. So, but for example, if you want to switch to this particular new term manager, you don't have to go through the existing global term sets and create them or reconfigure them by yourself. Those will be taken care automatically by this new term manager. So the good thing with this term manager is that they have increased the number of terms which are supported at the tenant level. Earlier it was 200,000, but now that it has been increased to 1 million. So you can get advantages of this increased number of terms supported in the tenant level. So let's see like how this new term manager looks like. I already have shown this as a part of my demo, but once you move to this new SharePoint Admin Center, under Content Services, you should see TermStore. I guess this is mostly available with most of the first release candidates. So once you are here, you will be able to see all of these groups, term set, and terms in a modern experience. So I didn't have to make any move to make those appearing into the new term store manager. Those have been automatically taken care by the update, so that I'm able to see all of those terms here. Again, all of the operations that we used to perform in the classic environment are also supported here, like adding a new term set inside group, renaming the group, deleting the group, and importing the term set. So all those operations are intact, but just that it has got some modern experience. So, but still the old experience is available with us. For example, if you want to still keep using the old experience, you can come to this more features, click term store, and from here you still will be able to make use of the old experience. But I will say mostly use the modern experience that is available with this term store, the new term store. Okay, with that then I'm moving to the last part of my updates. So the next thing that is available to us is a content type gallery, because we have been mostly using the content type hubs and all those things. So it has been now taken into the SharePoint Admin Center of level, wherein you can manage all of these content types into this new content type gallery from the SharePoint Admin Center. So these content types will be available across all of your SharePoint sites inside your tenant. So depending on your tenant, when it gets released, that particular option should be available after this term store inside content services. So that option name is content type gallery. Here is one screenshot which makes you aware like how that function will look like. So once you go to this content type gallery, you can create a content type and again specify all of the columns and their types, what we used to do. Again, we can go to the advanced settings, and if there are any templates that has to be associated with your content type, it can be done from here. So this functionality should be rolled out within a month to most of your tenants. If your tenant is a first release candidate, then this should be available with you soon. Um, Again, for example, if you want to manage your content type, it can be done from that particular window. You can go to your content type and you can have the same kind of an experience which you used to have in the classic experience, like adding more side columns to your content types, even defining more templates to your content types. All those kind of operations can be done from here. Just the good thing is that we now have only one consolidated place from where we will be able to control all of our content types, instead of creating those content types inside your SharePoint site, or even managing them centrally from the content type hub. So this is the one good place from where you can manage the entire content types all across your SharePoint or Office 65 tenant. So here are a few resources. For example, if you want to explore more on the manage metadata service and this new content type gallery. With that,